Welcome to Coffee, Culture, and the Capitol with Sophia and Greg.
Well, hello everyone, and welcome back. If you are watching live, you will see we have Greg back with us today. So Greg, welcome back to the podcast.
Well, I'm glad you missed me. It was only one time, but I was actually up in Ferndale, which is Northern California. It was a 6-hour drive north of Sacramento near Eureka, and there was a conference there at a small little Lutheran church on religious liberty and freedom of conscience, and they're having quite a little impact in their community, standing up for biblical truth. And so they're encouraging their members to be bold and stand up for the gospel. And, that's when you really do that, it does cause a little controversy. So it was great.
That's amazing. And all churches should be doing that and encouraging their church community to be standing up for what
Absolutely.
And so, as you guys all know by now, because you've been watching all the episodes, the legislative session is over. We will have an episode in the next coming weeks about all the different bills we were fighting and where their final situation is. So stay watching out for that. But for today, we have some things going on. We're going to talk about a CIF board meeting that I went and spoke at yesterday morning.
And for CIF, some people don't know what the acronym is. So what does that mean? What's the CIF?
Yeah, the CIF, it's the governing board of high school sports here in the state of California. So they oversee all of the high school sports here in the state of California. And so I went and spoke at their meeting, so we're going to dive into that today, as well as we're going to go over our scorecards, our legislative scorecards, so you can see how all the state senators and assembly members did based on the bills that California Family Council was watching this year. So don't click off early. You're going to want to see that. It's extremely important, and we're going to walk through how you guys will have access to those scorecards in your own home, on your own computers, on your own phones, and can print them out and show people because those are important to be aware of. So before we get into the scorecards, CIF, like Greg was asking, to clarify again, it's the governing board of high school sports here in the state of California. And so they have these federated board meetings, federated council meetings where they get together, and it's all the different members from the different counties and the different sections. Like there's the CIF SS, you might see that. That's the CIF Southern section, and so that's the schools in the Southern section that play together. And so we have all these different sections because we're such a big state. But why did I go? Well, Greg, we have been having an issue with the sports here in California, haven't we?
That's right. Boys identifying as girls are being placed on girls' sports teams. And not only just playing on the sports teams, but the girls are being made to undress in locker rooms in front of the boys. Everybody has to pretend this male standing in front of them is really a girl, and the girls are having to undress right in front of them. It's unbelievable, and the CIF is complicit. Not even complicit. They're doing more than just, okay, the state's making us do this. No, they are issuing guidelines for players on how they're supposed to deal with this, right? How they're supposed to be sensitive to these men who want to see them undress, right? And why don't you talk a little bit about that, Sophia? Now, Sophia knows all about this because she has been a soccer player her entire life, and she played in high school and college, and so this is near and dear to her heart.
Yes, absolutely. And so, as Greg, as you were saying, how CIF could simply be saying, listen, we're not okay with this, but our hands are tied by the state, but we're also not brave enough to push back. But that's not what they're saying at all. That's the bare minimum. That's what, if anything, that's what they should be saying. But we have a CIF gender diverse toolkit. And in this toolkit, it walks all through how to help onboard these boys onto girls' sports teams. And yes, I want to clarify, it does go the other way. It does allow the ability for girls to be on boys' sports teams, but we're just not seeing that happen. we're not seeing things go that way. We're seeing boys into girls sports teams, boys into girls locker rooms. And so
now, why did you think that's happening?
Okay, now that you've all
why wouldn't a girl want to play on the boys volleyball team?
Because she knows.
If she identifies as a boy, why doesn't that happen?
She knows.
Are we all idiots?
Yeah, and that's what they think. They want to think that of us, that we don't understand these biological differences. It's common sense to understand what's going on. So those that say they don't get it, they're truly just not thinking. They're choosing to ignore the truth and reality. But
right, because most girls wouldn't be able to make the varsity male teams because they're at a disadvantage because of their biology. Not to do with their merit and hard work. It's because the male bodies give you an advantage, especially in contact sports, in sports involving strength and height and jumping, right?
Absolutely. I mean, so I grew up playing soccer, and soccer is, I mean, if there was men playing against me on the soccer team, you would see injury after injury. You already see that happen. Growing up playing soccer, I've had 7-8 concussions from that. I've seen girls have career-ending injuries. They never got back from that. It is a very competitive sport. It is. I mean, I was a captain on a lot of the teams I played on, and we always said, like, you need to leave it all out on the line. Like, you need to, like, it doesn't matter what you're doing to your body to do that slide tackle, to get that header, like, put it out all on the line for your teammates. And so, like, to go into a game thinking about that and going up for I got a black eye because I went up for a header once against a girl. And so just thinking about what could happen if there was males out there. I mean, they kick so much harder, they're so much faster, but they're so much stronger, and so we would just see injuries through the roof. But with that, growing up in California and playing sports, I was a 4-year CIF varsity athlete for soccer. And so when I was a freshman on the varsity team, I was 13, 14 years old playing with some 18-year-old girls. And even that was a, like, shock for me. Like, I remember my first ever high school game going up, and there was girls that had, like, tattoos that I could, like, visibly see. And me as, like, a 14-year-old, I was like, I remember that game ending. It was literally my first ever high school soccer game. And I remember being like, Mom, the girl I was up against had a tattoo. And, like, she's an adult. And, like, so even that was a very big, like, shock for me. Because, again, if you're a freshman on a varsity team, you are playing against 18-year-olds. And I was a starter as a freshman. So it wasn't like I sat the bench and didn't play until, like, I was older. I was there, and, like, these girls were better than me. They were bigger and stronger than me because of that age difference. So now imagine if it's a male. But with that to say, it's a close topic to my heart because, again, I was a 4-year varsity athlete, but 3 of those years I was a captain. And the importance of this is in that CIF Gender Diverse Toolkit, and I literally have it here on my phone, so I'm going to read directly from it to you guys. It goes through all these best practices where they ask these simple questions such as, how do we address pronoun changes? Which restrooms and locker rooms should a trans or other gender student use? And it answers these questions. And so as I was going through the toolkit, I read where it says, how do we successfully onboard trans/non-binary athletes? And so they give a short answer that just says, a little preparation goes a long way to ensuring optimal outcomes for the athletes, their coach and teammates, their fan base, and competitors. But then they go into a deeper explanation. And there's a couple different options. And one of the options, it says, enlist the assistance of your team captain to welcome the new teammate and to help them acclimate. There is more to sports than just playing the game. The sense of belonging and camaraderie is high on the list for any student. So, for onboarding trans/non-binary athletes, and that's what the toolkit says, so onboarding male athletes onto the women's team, it's to enlist the assistance of your team captain. So that means when I was a captain at 15 years old, when I was captain at 15 years old, like, I'll be honest, some of those 18-year-old girls on the team that were seniors that I've been working hard for that weren't happy that I got that role because they had already felt like they were working for that. So there was already having to figure out how can I be a captain to girls that are 3 years older than me, and trying to figure out how to take that role on. Now imagine there is a senior who is a male who's identifying as a female on the women's soccer team. It would have been my job as a 15-year-old to help onboard the 18-year-old male to the soccer team, to the women's soccer team, into the women's locker room. So not only is CIF saying we need to do this, they're saying we need these young girls to be welcoming and bringing them into these spaces. It would have been my job to tell the girls on the team that felt uncomfortable that there was a naked male with exposing genitalia in the locker room. It would have been my job, the 15-year-old's job, to tell the other girls, hey, that's okay. We got to welcome them. We got to be nice. And so me, with the values I have and the personality I had, if I got put in that situation at 15 years old, I would have told my coach no. But honestly, 98% of girls wouldn't do that because they don't know what to say and what to do. And now we're putting those girls in these situations. I mean, it's beyond.
Right. No, and this is happening. Why? Because adults, leaders in our schools are letting it happen, right? And I was reading a quote. Somebody was quoting Albert Einstein, and this is a paraphrase, but he more or less said, there's not a lot of evil in the world because there's so many evil people out there. There's lots of evil in the world because so many people see evil happening and they turn their head and move on, right? So that is what all those people you talk to today are doing. Mm-hmm. They are turning their head and moving on, right? They don't want to be the one to say the truth, to say the king is naked or whatever what is that phrase is. Nobody wants to, the king has no clothes on. Everybody knows this is crazy and harmful, but they don't want to be the ones to say it. Well, that's how evil thrives. In a culture where there's cowardice and no one wants to point it out, right? And so I think we're going to play what you said, but I think what you said at the very end is true. Someone's going to get hurt, and there's nobody to blame. And some people are already getting hurt, right? I mean, just exposing your daughters and robbing them of dignity, of undressing in front of the opposite sex, right? You're already emotionally raping them, making them. It's beyond the pale, and everybody doesn't want to say anything. It makes me embarrassed. It really does.
Absolutely. And so I'm going to play the clip of what I said yesterday morning at the meeting. But before we play it, I just want to explain that, like Greg mentioned, I tell them that when a girl gets injured, it's going to be on their hands and they're complicit, because this isn't the first time they've heard this. They had a meeting earlier this week in Northern California where Beth Bourne, Women Are Real, San Francisco Turf, those ladies all showed up and spoke. But that wasn't the first time they heard it. Back in February of this year, we went to Long Beach to their meeting and spoke to them there. And they heard from, I think, almost 30 different people sharing stories. And even that wasn't the first time they heard it. Last year when they had a meeting in Sacramento, again, Beth Bourne and all these different ladies up in the Sacramento area, they went to it. So they have now heard from us for over a year. They know the reality of what they're being complicit to. They know what their silence is doing. And so that's kind of why I chose to say the things I said, so we can check that out real quick.
Being a team captain, being a former CIF athlete and a collegiate athlete, it broke my heart to read the CIF policy that puts the feelings of boys before the safety of girls. Playing high school sports is an invaluable experience that is now diminishing for girls in the state of California due to your policies. I believe that most of you sitting here don't want to be complicit in allowing girls to be injured or forced to be naked next to males in women's locker rooms. But you've all remained silent. And when the adults are too fearful to stand up, we are left with stories as such. Peyton McNabb, North Carolina high school volleyball player who was knocked unconscious by a male player causing neurological impairments. Kylie Allen's D1 swimmer changing in a storage closet to avoid a naked male swimmer in the women's locker room. Brooke Slusser, California D1 volleyball player who's receiving death threats for speaking out against a man on her team. Annalie Wilson, high school freshman who lost a track meet due to being forced to compete with a boy. Paula Scanlon, D1 swimmer and sexual assault survivor forced to undress alongside a man in the women's locker room. Abigail Wheeler, a swimmer at 16-year-old had a male watching her undressed in a girls' locker room. And if you think this isn't already happening all over high schools in the state of California, you are lying to yourself. If you, as the CIF Federated Board, remain silent, then you are complicit. And I pray we stop this madness before we get to this point, but when the first California high school female athlete is paralyzed or even dead because of an injury from a male being in girls' sports, we will be able to look back at all the names here today and say that you knew, and say that you are complicit. I don't want that for you all. I want someone here to be bold enough to stand up. Stand up for us girls. I went to the Canadian Unified School District in Los Angeles County. I'm happy to talk with any of you here. We can make a difference. We need to fix this policy for all the girls.
Good job.
Thank you. It was genuinely, and Greg, you already know this, but just sharing with the listeners, the first time when I was speaking where I actually got choked up because I was just thinking of the stories I was reading. Those are some of the bigger stories we know about and are aware about. But I think about a neighbor of mine that called me and let me know that 2 years ago, their daughter in 8th grade had to go change in the office because there was a boy in her locker room in 8th grade changing out for PE. And again, that's California and that's what's happening. And so it just breaks my heart to think that this is happening in that room full of adults. If you are watching the video, if you're just listening on the podcast, you can go check out on YouTube the video. But if you're watching the podcast right now, you would see when it turned around, there was a room about 55 adults in there. And again, no one's done anything so far, but on a positive note, and something that all of you can be praying with us about, is I handed out my business card to some of them, and some of them just kind of like awkwardly grabbed it to me because I was basically like standing there like, grab this for me. But one of the ladies that was sitting there, she goes, can I get your card, and asked for it. So that's something we're praying about on our end, that these people, these adults who are in charge feel convicted, reach out, and we can move forward with looking at next steps to push back against this ideology or push back against the toolkit, and the forcing of asking young girls to somehow be welcoming and accepting and including of males in their locker rooms. But it just so sad.
Yeah, and I kind of just, okay, what if I was in that room? What if I was one of those adults? What would I be telling myself? You know, and I can imagine I would be conflicted, saying, you know, what can I do? Like, all these decisions have been made for me. We're just stuck with this, right? You start rationalizing. If I speak up, what's going to happen? I'll just lose my position, and then I can't. You know, what's that going to do? What's standing up? What positive thing is standing up going to do, right? And so, but that whenever what you do is, okay, let's organize. So it's not just me standing up. I'm sure other people. So you think strategically. Like, I get it. You don't just want to blow up the meeting and raise and throw a ruckus. Okay, be strategic, but do something. Mm-hmm. Don't do nothing. Right? Like, form a committee. Form a group so you all come out at once. Get a school or a coach, or, be strategic, but don't sit there and think you are off the hook because you're outnumbered. And just if you stood up, what's going to happen, right? So I get it. You think there's nothing you can do. I mean, we get this attitude with legislators at the Capitol. Like, well, I could stand up and they'd all yell at me and then everything blows up and then I lose my seat. And then, okay, be strategic. But don't sit there and do nothing.
Yep.
Right? Anyway, that's my little...
No, I agree. Because this thing, at the end of the day, it's going to go one of two ways. You're either going to be the brave adult that chose to stand up and make a difference and chose to support girls and protect girls. Or, again, like, I hate even thinking this, but if things don't turn around soon, this is where we're heading. A girl is going to be paralyzed or killed. That is the reality of it, because I mentioned it in my speech, Peyton McNabb, a high school player, literally led to paralyzation in half of her side of her body after having the volleyball spike down on the side or by mail onto her. It's been 2 years now. She's still facing medical issues, concussions, all kinds of different things. So when this happens in the state of California, you can either be the person that said, I did all I could to stand against this, or your name's going to be dropped on that list because you were at one of these meetings where you've heard us, and so you knew what was happening. So be praying.
Well, and it's not just the threat of physical harm. It's like you're once this catches on, why in the world are schools who are competitive going to have any girls on their girls team?
Mm-hmm.
You're just going to recruit males who identify as females. And if you can be non-binary, what does non-binary means? It means, yeah, you're a guy, well, but you don't identify as either gender. So you don't even have to be trans. You just say, hey, I'm both sexes. I'm either sex. I'm something in between, right? I mean, non-binary is kind of an all catch-all phrase for anything but strictly male. I identify as my body says I am, yep. Right? Okay, what? It just soon schools are going to catch on, and they go, okay, well, if that school is going to have half their team male, then we're going to do it too, and half the team will start identifying as non-binary. And how do you prove you're non-binary? You simply say you're non-binary. So you better fix this now, folks, or girls' sports will disappear. It will disappear. It'll just be guys.
Yeah, and I wish I could say you're being dramatic, but you're not. That's the reality of it. But with that, the scorecards. Greg.
Scorecards.
Why don't you tell everyone a little bit about what these scorecards are and how they can access them?
Yeah, well, we're going to show it to you here on the screen. Now, the scorecards are put together by our sister organization called the California Family Alliance. This is a 501c4 organization. They have more leeway in doing more, let's say, direct advice and campaign-related type stuff. And so our organization is put this together. And I just want to walk you through going to this website. So you go to CaliforniaAlliance.com and you scroll down to the bottom. And right here, you'll see California Legislator Scorecards. Now, these are our scorecards where we do them every year. It's kind of like a grade. And there this year we had 22 bills that we were either supporting or opposing. And we grade all the legislators based on how they voted. And when they and we have individual scorecards for all of them, and I'll show you that. Maybe I'll start with that. So if you look at this page, you'll see 2024, 23, 22. We've been doing this for a couple years now. And then we have, we'll be looking at 2024 scorecards, and we have them for individual senators and all the individual assembly members. But before you want to figure out who your representative actually is, right? And so what would you do is you would click on this, find your state senator here. So if you clicked on that, and let's see what pops up. You'll see you type in your address and you hit locate, and it will pop up who your state and state senator is and who your state representative is. So we'll go back here. All right. And so let's take a peek at what an individual scorecard looks like. All right. So we'll click on here, and hopefully you guys all see that. These are the 2024 individual senator. And why don't we just take a peek at the first senator here. His name is Senator Benjamin Allen, and shows he's a Democrat, District 24, and El Segundo. El Segundo, got a 24% out of 100. So he's not doing so well. So let's see why he got such a bad grade. All right, here you go. So you got, I'll blow it up here so you can see a little more. As you can see, what's listed here is the first column is how the legislator actually voted. Now, he can vote three ways. He can vote yes, which means A-Y-E means yes. He cannot vote at all or is absent. That's an ABS, an absent. Or he votes no. And this senator didn't vote no on anything. So if he voted no, it would say no, and it would say it would be red. But this column here, the second column it shows the number, the bill number, and if it's red, that means we, California Family Counselor, wants him to vote no, right? And so you can see on the abortion-related bills, we wanted this Senator Allen to vote no on all the abortion-related bills. The first bill, he didn't vote at all, and the next three bills, he voted yes. So that's going to mark him down as bad, right? Now we got some crime bills. We got two bills here we thought were good. SB 268, which adds the rape of an intoxicated drug victim to the list of violent felonies. We thought that was a good bill. And it looks like he voted yes, so he gets a positive vote. The same thing for SB 14. So that's how it works. Going down this list, every legislator gets a grade based on how they're voting. And then the center part actually gives you a brief description of the bill. It shows that the bill passed or failed, and then it shows you how the vote went. So the first number is the yes votes. The second number is the no votes, and the last number is the votes of those who just didn't vote at all. And if you want a specific explanation of how to read this, if what you're hearing from me is too complicated, you just go to the second page, and we have a detailed description of how to read your scorecard. So, and we have that for every one of your legislators. So it's great you might hear your legislator saying all kinds of things about what they believe, but you really need to figure out what they're actually doing in practice. And so another thing I wanted to show you is...
Greg, where would people be able to access these scorecards? What do they search, or how do they find them online?
Yeah, find them online. You just go CaliforniaFamilyAlliance.com. CaliforniaFamilyAlliance.com, and you go to the bottom of the page, and it says the scorecards. All right. And then we also have one sheet that actually shows all the grades up front, and we compare who got the best grade and who got the worst grade. So we'll go there now. So here is the overall scores of all the legislators, both assembly members and senators. So you can see the best grade. We only got two people who got an A. So, and that was Assemblyman James Gallagher and Assemblyman Jim Patterson. And then we had some close A's, and we have another list of Republicans, both assembly members and senators, as you can see here. But, as you notice, the top votes, the top grades are all going to Republicans. We don't have any Democrat show up on our list, and we're going down. And we got some Republicans didn't do so well. Assemblywoman Maria Waldron, Senator Maria Alvarado Gil got 57. You got Juan Annalise and Assemblyman Greg Wallace, who got really bad grades. And then the best Democrat is a 39%, and that's that's worse than all the Republicans. And you can see most people are getting in the 20s and below. The worst grades on the whole list, you can see here, are Assemblyman Corey Jackson, Assemblyman Alex Lee, and the former speaker, Assemblyman Anthony Rendon. So, and these little cards here, this is if you could actually print out this scorecard and hand it out to your friends, and then they could actually see the individual cards. This QR code will take them to a file where they can see their individual senators' votes. So that's how it works. And I hope you guys take advantage of looking at these cards. And just again, to remind you, the website to look at is CaliforniaFamilyAlliance.com, and scroll to the bottom of the page. And I think that's it. Anything I missed, Sophia?
No, I think you hit all the things. And like you said, people should print these out, give them to their friends, send the friends the link around, because then you can see exactly what your elected official did this year when it came to the bills we were watching. And on that note, we watch bills that affect biblical values. So life, education, marriage, this whole gender and trans ideology. So we are tracking all those all year long, and now we're able to look and say, how did my representative get according to California Family Council's bill watch list? And so, super. Right. I think it's one of the best resources we provide. So make sure to go find it, go send it around, share with people, post it on your social media. We have it on our social media. If you go to our Instagram, you'll see there's a post about it. Reshare that to your stories, send it around. But these elected officials, at the end of the day, they work for us. They don't work for themselves. They don't work for all these organizations that are pouring money into them. They work for the people. And so they need to be held accountable or celebrated for how they voted. And so this is a great way to track that and pay attention to that.
Right. Politicians can say all kinds of things, and they might even sound great, right? They sound good. Well, at the end of the day, the most important thing they do is vote. And what bills are they voting on? Because laws aren't changed without votes. And so you want to make sure that all the words they're saying when they're in the district match the actual votes they're taking when they're in the Capitol. So and legislators, listen, when they know that you're watching actual voting, and when you go see your legislator speak next time, print off their grade and hand it to them, and say, hey, this is what I'm handing out to my friends and family in my church. So I see you did well here, but it looks like you need improvement here, right? So that's how we keep our legislators accountable. They're there representing us, right? We send them there to represent us because we're not going there, and they're going in our stead. So this is part of what a democracy is, a representative republic. So
absolutely. Well, we will see you all next time. But in the meanwhile, share this podcast episode, sign up for our newsletter at californiafamily.org, share the scorecards, and let people know what's happening in high school sports in the state of California. But we will see you all next time.